And joining us now is Dr. Patrick Rishe. Put into words, because we have no idea, since the MLS has never been here before, what this actually means for our town.
Well, it means that we're, once again, a major league city. We're in a sport now where the millennials and the Gen Zers are very passionate about soccer, much more so than they are the other sports. All the data, all the trends point to this. So this means not only do we get more exposure and visibility throughout the year, the St. Louis name, the St. Louis brand is going to be out there on ESPN and Fox for all these home matches that we host, but it's also great advertising for our city, and it could bring some of these corporations that are run by millennials and Gen Zers to St. Louis.
Are you absolutely confident that they can sell that thing out? Let's just say the stadium comes out to be 24,000 in capacity. Do you think, no doubt about it, this thing's a sellout for 2 straight years?
I'm extremely confident, and the reason why, Frank, is we know the history of soccer in this community is so strong. There will be fans coming from, say, a 200-mile radius to come to St. Louis to watch soccer. You benefit from the fact that you have most of your matches are on weekends, so that's going to bring in people. It's easier to come in, just like they used to for football games. I have zero doubt that they'll be able to fill the facility in the first 2 years.
What if the Cardinals are playoff lists for 5 or 6 or 7 years and MLS comes to town? As great as the Cardinals are, could that affect them at all?
I don't see that. I mean, again, at the end of the day, the baseball and the soccer demographics are very different, and baseball is so entrenched in this town. We should add the Blues we're entrenched before the Stanley Cup, but both of those teams, they are entrenched. I don't see them necessarily pulling significant fan support or corporate support from the Cardinals or the Blues.
You're not only a professor of economics, you're a soccer passionate fan who probably wakes up early on Saturday mornings and watches a ton of games. Give us an idea on the caliber of soccer we see in the MLS.
The caliber of soccer has improved. There's no question that a lot of the European players or South American players that come in as designated players, that's made a huge difference. Just went to a Galaxy match the other night, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, of course, one of the stars of MLS, but they just brought in a young 23-year-old that's on the Argentinian national team. These guys are not going to be the answer long term unless the money in Major League Soccer improves. And I think part of the expansion plan is the more markets you're in, the more eyeballs you have on the sport, you're hopefully going to see those media rates at the national level get bigger and bigger, and you can acquire better talent.
Let's talk salaries, because we know what every Cardinal is making. What's an average MLS player make? What's the high end? What's the low end?
Well, you do have some players in Major League Soccer that are making $5, $6, $7 million, but most of these are those unique designated players that are coming in internationally, like Zlatan, like Wayne Rooney. So the average player, you're seeing more in the low 6-figure salary amounts, and with minimum salaries just below 6-figure. Can
you stack or at least have some guys on your roster with St. Louis roots? Because we know the most asked question in St. Louis is, where'd you go to high school? We want to see our own. Can you load a roster up like that?
Well, you can try to. That's the nice thing of starting from scratch, is they may be allowed some designations, some roster spots. Interestingly, you brought that up. The WNBA, when they first formed, they allowed teams to do this. In Major League Soccer, the same thing. They knew where guys, maybe they played their college ball or where their hometowns were, and you try to bring some of those guys in just to, sweeten the pot. I don't think we need that to sweeten the pot here in St. Louis, but certainly wouldn't hurt.
We also have a large Bosnian population. How important is it to get somebody from Bosnia that, so many Bosnians in St. Louis would just love to cheer for?
Well, I think the first thing is team management needs to make sure that they know how to market to the Bosnian community and reach out to people from the Bosnian community here in this market, because our Hispanic market is not as large as you see in other markets like Los Angeles, like Miami will have. So we need to reach out to that group. Now, would having a Bosnian player of some repute help with that? Absolutely.
Okay, so we have 2 power families together. The Taylor family, Carolyn Kindle Betts and Jim Cavanaugh. Together, they went to the best soccer stadiums in the MLS, and then they've put their plan together for their dream stadium. Can you give us an idea just how special this thing is going to be stadium-wise?
Well, hopefully they've done their homework, because there are a lot of great facilities out there. Just this summer, I've spent my time in Los Angeles, so I went to several Galaxy matches and LAFC playing in the brand new Bank of California Stadium. when you build a stadium today, you've got to make sure that you're catering to all the different socioeconomic groups out there. You've got to have some affordable sections. You have to have some supporter sections that create fan engagement. That's an important piece. But you also have to have luxury high-end sections that are going to cater to that segment of the population. So you need all of that. Then there's the sight lines. There's the video boards, all of the bells and whistles that you have to think about to maximize the fan experience. Because Frank, I think that's a huge differentiator. So often it's easy for many of us to go home and watch sports on TV because the viewing experience is so great. So you have to constantly think about how do we make this experience great for fans in person. So all of that goes into it.
How about the crowd? Somebody described it to me as the average person at an MLS game is a millennial who drinks craft beer and dances and sings the entire game.
Well, you have more fans, millennials, Gen Zers, that don't just want to sit in their seats like we or our parents did when they went to watch sports. So they are, going back to stadium construction, building locations in your facility where people can stand and congregate rather than have to sit in your seat the entire time. Even the Cardinals have done this with the Budweiser Terrace. That was done explicitly to cater to millennials and Gen Zers that they know don't want to sit for a baseball game for 3 hours. So absolutely, that is part of the soccer demographic. It is younger.
Let's talk finances. Naming rights, jersey rights. What do you think this St. Louis group is charging? What will they get?
Well, I think first of all, with naming rights, you're looking at somewhere probably in the $3 to $4 million range, and I say that because
a year to put your name on the stadium.
A year, and I'm saying that because if you look at the far end of the spectrum, LAFC at Bank of California, they are getting $7.5 million annually. We're not in that market, so that's not going to happen. But that gives you a benchmark on the high end. Whereas if you look at kind of where is the middle tier for most teams, it's usually in that $2 to $4 million range. Being a newer team, I think we'll get that. For a jersey deal or a kit deal, as you call it, the Galaxy, who are the gold standard in MLS, they've won the most championships, they have a deal with Herbalife, they've had that forever, and it's $5 million annually. Again, the market is large, and they have too established of a brand, so that's not great comparison, but Minnesota, relatively new team, they have a $3 million deal per year with Target. So my sense is for the kit deal, that will also be in the $3 to $4 million range annually.
On the way out, Stan Kroenke said St. Louis lags behind, and it would be like financial suicide for the NFL to remain here. What's the statement we are going to be making with this?
Well, there are some apples to oranges here, obviously, because football does require a larger kind of sense of commitment financially and so on and so forth. But MLS, let's remember, it's endemic to the St. Louis fabric of this community. You go back to the early 1900s in the CYC leagues, which you may have played in when you were a kid.
Yes.
You look at the 1950 team where half of the guys on the team were part of that miracle team that beat England in the World Cup. You look at St. Louis University's dominance in the 60s and 70s. This is a community that's built on soccer. And even though we have our share of football fans in this community, and even though I think the XFL, with Oliver Luck as the commissioner, has a fighting shot to draw 20, 25,000 a game here, the commitment with soccer is a little bit different. So a little bit apples to oranges. I think we should just be really excited and proud that not only do we have our core teams of Blues and Cardinals, but now we've got a new exciting MLS team that I think is going to bring a lot of joy and a lot of money into St. Louis.
Do you think we'll be perceived differently?
I think that the perception will improve. Again, Major League Soccer is not on par with the largest of global soccer leagues. It's not the Premier League. But the fact that they have embraced us, that they want us, and quite frankly, by going after this the way they have, we have had to step up as a community. And the Taylors certainly and Jim Cavanaugh have done that. But I think we as a community, both fans and corporations, are going to have to prove that we deserve this team. And that's something that will have to be proven year in, year out.
I know this is kind of a general question, but do you have any idea economic impact, what an MLS team means to a city?
Well, I think the economic impact per game is relatively lower just because the percentage of fans that are coming from outside of the community is probably only going to be, say, 10 to 20% per match. And if you're only drawing 22, 23 a match, then it's relatively small. But I think the bigger impact is not only these unique special events that may draw people in from outside, like World Cup qualifiers or concerts, but it's the draw of now we have one other entertainment amenity that could bring millennials and Gen Zers to this community. Because as we said earlier, soccer is a millennial Gen Z sport. We already have built a reputation in St. Louis, partly for cost of living reasons, of bringing in a lot of young startup companies. Those are the millennials and the Gen Zers. So I think it's a perfect match, and by having that piece of the puzzle here in the community, the soccer team could bring in more business.
Perfect. All right, that's Dr. Patrick Rishe. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.